aka Black Socrates. All I ask is that you think.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Montoya Smith, aka Black Socrates, and welcome to the Just My 3 Cents podcast. We are now a pop-up show where we do live interactive pop-ups and discussions on race, sex, and culture, which if you're familiar with the Mental Dialogue talk show every Saturday morning, we are the best in the world at necessary conversations on race, sex, and culture. Tonight's pop-up discussion is part 2 of The Woman King, Shero or Propaganda. I was fortunate enough a couple of weeks to delve into part 1 on the actual Mental Dialogue talk show, which, by the way, is every Saturday morning live at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I had special guest Miss Dia from the show Atlanta ATL, as well as Shadon Reynolds, who I see is on here with me for this evening. So we'll get her back in here as well. But they held down an amazing show. It was a dope dialogue. And one of my listeners literally called me a week and a half later saying, we need to do another discussion on this. Well, she didn't hear the first discussion, but she was like, didn't realize we had discussed it already. And I thought it was worthy of discussion. I invited a couple people on. For those that are familiar with the Just My 3 Cents podcast, it's literally y'all can just jump on with me. I typically don't invite guests, but I invited a couple guests. So I'm going to introduce them quickly, and then we'll get some of the other callers to come on with us. So I'm going to have a couple of guests on the podcast with me because, again, it's a live interactive. You jump on, we'll rock 30 minutes to an hour and just kind of play it by ear. But let me introduce a couple of guests because I brought them on in particular so that we could extend the dialogue from the one that we've already had. We'll bring up some things that happened on that one as well, but just a couple of new perspectives. So Sam, I'm going to bring you live on here with me, as well as my brother Glenn, Shadon, and Michelle. I see y'all in the back. We'll get to y'all in a second, but let me introduce. Okay, we got Glenn and his wife Jazz on. Okay, cool, perfect. So I want to introduce a couple of guests again. Sam, let's just call it out. You were the one that's like, hey, we got to talk about this, and we are the platform for that. And so I was, at first I was like, well, we already did it. I don't know if I'm going to touch it or not. And then I called you this morning and said, you know what, I'm going to touch it. And let me tell you why. Because again, I got Sam. Sam, you're on mute, by the way. So you can say hello to the intellectual outcasts, as I call all of our listeners and watchers. We don't do a lot of video shows, but again, we pop up here and there. But if you will, say hello to the truth seekers. And I'm going to introduce Glenn and them as well and kind of explain while I have y'all as my particular guest before we get to anybody else. But again, just say hello to the intellectual outcasts, and I'm going to bring Glenn and his wife on.
Hello, my name is Sam. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Glenn, if you will, come off the mic real quick, you and Jazz. So let me tell you what prompted me to even do the show, Sam, because you did ask me, and at first I was like, no, I don't know if I'm going to touch it again. So I ended up calling this part 2. And what happened was, just to highlight this, we started our Mental Dialogue live experience back at Urban Grind this past Friday. And Glenn, who's a platinum level member of the club, basically came, I asked him to come. He came to the event, and him and his wife ended up sharing with me that they saw the movie and they enjoyed it. And so what ended up happening was I thought about it, you wanting to have this discussion. They enjoyed the movie, gave me some insight on, in a sense, what was in the movie. And I said, you know what? Since we explored the movie before it came out, just talking about the Woman King, the imagery, and as we called it, Shero or Propaganda, and that was, in a sense, done before the movie. I said, you know what? Let's have a dialogue where you, Sam, who've come to me and said, you know what? I don't even want to see the movie based on the name of the movie. And then I got Glenn and his wife who've seen the movie and give praise for it. I said, you know what? This will be some different perspectives. So, we're not going to be able to do a discussion specifically about the movie. So anybody out there watching, this won't be spoiler alerts. We're going to have a dialogue about, in a sense, how Sam sees it, why she won't see the movie, and maybe for myself who hasn't seen the movie as well, we could be able to ask Glenn and his wife if some of the things we're concerned about, did they even show up in the movie? And again, based on your issue, and we'll start with you, Sam, just tell people just personally why you did not want to see the movie, if you will.
Well, when I first saw the title, I was immediately offended. I thought it was divisive. First off, it said the Woman King, the Woman King. So when I first saw it, I'm like, well, can a woman be a king? So I thought it was really like against our Black men, and I thought it was really hyper emasculating our females, us as Black women. So I think that Black women in this country, we have enough issues, and we don't need to be called kings. I think that we already have enough problems with being with stereotypes, being aggressive, hostile, angry. We can't get along with our men. Um, we have a we have an issue with Black men and Black women having discourse amongst each other. I also thought it was a problem because I see it as though our Black men call us queens. And I would like to keep that narrative. I would like to keep that our Black men call us our Black men call us queens. I haven't heard any other race of women being called queens by their men. And now if they change that and start calling us kings, I see that as being a major issue. Also, it misplaces the man. So we already have a problem where they say the men you know, are pretty much like second class citizens, and they're not respected in this country. So now you're starting to call the women kings. What do you have? Where do the men fall into that? So I just think I think it's really we celebrate things to our demise, and I think that beyond me, so I haven't seen obviously I haven't seen the movie because I'm not planning on going to see the movie. I just think that it's a direct shot to us. I think it's a direct blow to us, and I think that we look at things and we celebrate it because um it's supposedly powerful. We exude strength, but Black women don't even. I mean, some Black women do like to be considered strong, but a lot of us don't like to be considered strong because that means that we can't be vulnerable with our men a lot of times. A lot of times, most races of women can be vulnerable with their men. They can be vulnerable, period, and they can cry, they can do all these things. But when it comes to us, is we're told to be strong, suck it up, put your big girl panties on. So I just think it's a thing where I don't think that we need that right now. And I think that by celebrating titles like that, it's to our demise. It's not really for us. But I can't really speak on the movie. I could just speak on the title.
No, absolutely. And again, that's a
Oh,
fair
one more
thought.
thing. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
go
And
ahead.
it's mainstream media. Now, if it wasn't mainstream media, then maybe I wouldn't be so upset about it, but I probably might be like that. I would question it still. And I would also wonder why they put a black face on it, even though I understand the concept, but we don't need that. We don't need anything making us look more aggressive. We don't need like look if you look at the picture on the thing, she's looking like she ready to go really in combat for real. And we don't need them more. We
She
don't need those
was.
images. We don't need those images. We need to be accepted as feminine women. We need to be accepted as real women, that's loving, that's caring,
Now,
that's
let
um
me jump in a
huh?
little bit. Now, yeah, you kind of laid out your position very well, so I appreciate that. Let me let Glenn and his wife get it here as well, if you don't,
Okay,
if you
thanks.
don't mind. Yeah, no, absolutely. You've laid out your position. So Glenn and Jazz, if you will, well, I'll start. You hear her concerns. She's already decided, in a sense, based on the name, she would not see it. And she gave you all of her concerns for why she would not see it. And so, real quick, before I know y'all loved the movie and enjoyed the movie. And here's the thing that moved me the most to even do the dialogue. I forgot to mention this was I remember when y'all came to the event and told me about the movie. Y'all said the movie made y'all feel like how much Black men and Black women needed each other. So that was telling to me that was a result that y'all really concluded, in clear, telling me what y'all loved about the movie. But with that said, prior to going to see the movie, did y'all have any of Sam's concerns? Did any of these things cross your mind? The idea of the propaganda or the imagery? Did y'all even have any of those concerns? Or no, you did, or was it no? Saw the movie and just wanted to see it. Like, was any of these things on your mind even before you went to see it? Just asking.
So yeah, I definitely had concerns before seeing the movie. I was almost to the point where I was on edge of whether or not I was going to see it at all. My wife was kind of like, "No, we should definitely see it." So she kind of leaned me in that direction that this is, worth something looking into. So, so yes, by the title and sorry, the volume's low here.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, well, I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So by the title and by the first trailer, my first thought was, okay, this is a story about, a woman coming here and dominating all the men and, showing that, the strong Black, woman, stereotype and things like that. And they're going to emasculate all the men and all that. And that's what I honestly thought the movie was going to be when I first heard about it. But going in, it definitely changed my perspective, and I just thought there was more balance than I thought there would be.
Okay.
It wasn't a perfect movie, but it was still, in my opinion, a really well written movie. The acting was great, a lot of the cinematography, and I could just tell that there were many Black women that dedicated a lot of time working out and going over the script, just the way they were doing it. That it was really first class. There was nothing second class about the movie in terms of the production of it.
Yeah, sounds good.
The story was awesome. So.
Yeah, let me ask this real quick. Let me kind of throw that same question to Jazz, since it sounds like Glenn had those concerns, was almost on the edge of not going, and you were influenced him and said, "Oh, let's go ahead and see it." So, what in your mind said, "Hey, we need to go ahead and see it"? What made you say that, and did you have any of these concerns as well, Jazz?
So for me, I didn't even know about the Woman King until he brought this to me. So first, I didn't even think it was being publicized enough, or it was getting enough publicity. And so the moment he felt some type of like, I don't want to see it, I was like, well, we definitely need to see it now.
Okay.
And so for me, I didn't get any of that, because when I see the movie, I see it as art, and art is there to be depicted in any kind of way. People are allowed to have any opinion that they want to have on it. I mean, that's how art works. So that's how I went into it. I went into it with a very open mind. I didn't get any negative feelings from what I saw, because to be honest with you, it is a common trope already. So to me, it didn't seem any different, And then I love that you brought out the piece about men and women needing each other, because for me, there's a lot of symbolism in the movie, but for us, I think that resonated deeply for me, because we talk a lot about submission and like all those things. And I think it did a beautiful job of showing that the woman, or a Black woman, doesn't necessarily need to shrink herself or, detract from what makes her powerful or who she is, to raise the man up. I think they did an awesome job of showing that play and showing that, the Woman King wasn't trying to upstand or be better or take his place or any of that. They revered him deeply, and to see both of what they brought to the table to move the nation forward, to me, what was beautiful.
Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna get you done on here. 1 second. One other quick question, because I respect what you said. It's such a common trope. No concern. It's just a thought process. So when something's common, can it, to a degree, just a quick question, can it be harmful that it's reinforced? I mean, just as a thought process. Again, you personally, it didn't bother you that way, but can you understand maybe someone like a Sam who's saying, "Hey, we don't need this reinforced"? I'm talking about just the concept of it, even though sounds like the movie was done beautifully and didn't show maybe what y'all were concerned about. But when you say something's common, is that not a concern that we can reiterate it? Just a quick thought on that, and then I'll get you done on here with us.
I say no, just because it's funny when women or Black women are allowed to be strong and when they're not. And so to say that we should not give light to that reality for some people is kind of denying someone who may identify, who may be having that experience. So it's like, you can show up in this way at this point, but you need to calm it down in this point. So for me, no, I don't think it's there's any harm, because it is an experience that folks do have.
Okay, so all right, I'm gonna get you down here. And so what I offer, what I would personally say, the unfortunate part that it's common is the issue, in my opinion, because it's been so unbalanced for so many years. So it's not it's not about denying it. It's that unfortunately in mainstream media rarely is the other side of you shown. So the fact that it's common is not, you see what I'm saying? So it's not that we're not showing it, it's the fact that it's shown so consistently. Sam, get a thought, and Shadun, you're in next. Go ahead, Sam. Come off mute. You're on mute, Queen.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I love that. I love that they said it helps, Black women and Black men, stick together or whatever. But we definitely need more images of that. The thing is how do you get past the title, before to even go and see the movie? I don't doubt that it's a great movie, but what I'm saying is that in the title you have subliminal messages. And one thing that you said that's very important is that they identify, right? So if they identify with this, they're going to identify that a woman is a king. So if they're not identifying that, they're going to automatically put themselves in the position as a king. And we don't need our women putting ourselves in positions as kings. We want, because we don't have that feminine element as it is. We need to be able to have that and maintain that. To go see a movie is one thing, but to have images and a narrative and you to have our identity so masculated and so masculine, I think that's the bigger problem for me. And then it dismisses our men. Where would the men fall into? Like if the woman is a king, like then that puts them in. I mean, that just totally dismisses our men. And that was one of my biggest concerns too, because like our black men already feel like we don't love them. Our black men already feel like we're not there for them. They already feel like we want to be men. We're so strong. We're hyper strong. And this is all we display all the time. And then we let other people come in and write stories and write narratives for us. And that's detrimental to our community. They're not writing that for themselves. They're writing it for us. So you're not going to go and see other women of other races calling themselves kings. It's just not going to happen. And guess what? Their men are not going to allow that either. You think that their men are going to allow them to say woman king on anything? Absolutely not. That's why they didn't do it. If they were able to do it, they would do it.
Yeah,
we embrace a lot of things because we celebrate it, because it's saying, oh my God, this is such a great thing. It may be a great thing, but what's behind it? What's the story behind it? What's the image behind it? That's all I'm saying.
No, I think those are some good questions. I'm gonna let Sherdon jump in here. And one quick thought, I follow Dr. Boyce Watkins, and one thing he asked, I think prior to going to see the movies, he's seen it now, so I don't know what he said since that, but he said a serious question: are the women fighting along with the men, or are the men staying at home and the women doing the fighting? He kind of asked that, just kind of going into it, just as a kind of a question, I guess, whatever his anticipation was. So real quick, Glenn or Jazz, was it a situation where they were fighting together? And I'm going right to Sherdon after that. I just thought it just popped up because of what Sam said. That was something that crossed his mind, and I could just see these thoughts that Sam has, because her concerns for why she won't watch it, and that was a thought that Dr. Boyce had. But any quick answers to that question? Did they fight along with each other, or was it a situation where, just wondering?
I'm gonna let Glenn answer that question, but I did want to correct something without being a spoiler. There is actually, they show both sides of, there's a spectrum of femininity, womanhood, Black womanhood shown in the movie. It's not just these warriors, it's a nation. And so understanding that everybody have different roles in nation. So I'm gonna let Glenn speak to.
And in the movie, men and women did fight together. It's just that it had a special, unique unit that trained alone, did their own thing, and came in certain circumstances. But there was a regular army as well. So
nice. All right, Sherdon, jump in here, Queen. You were on my last show, so glad to get your time again.
So let me tell you what tickles me. And I know this is a serious topic to people, right? But what tickles me is that it's a movie, and although it is also loosely based on real life, right? Like there's literally a tribe or a set of warriors that were women that had to fight for their nation. So it is what it is. This was pre-mainstream media, right? That there's these women warriors that fought alongside their men or were a bulk of it. So we can't blame mainstream media in that case, because these women literally had to do that. And to say we should suppress their story because mainstream media is doing something today, when in that time, prior to media technology of any sort, they were still positioned to have to fight in these male roles, so to speak. Like, that's mind-blowing to me. And then I also think about Black Panther, right? We were all okay with that title because it was Black Panther and it was Chadwick as this big, strong man. But when you watch the movie, it's all about women taking care of this whole nation, all these women warriors. They're responsible for making sure that it has the technology that it needs. They're responsible for making sure that when his powers are depleted, that it's restored. And nobody had an issue with that. Like, nobody felt like, damn, why are the men not like helping all these women warriors? Why is it that in every aspect of this movie, if the woman's role was absent, it would have failed? Like, nobody felt a kind of way about that. And
you don't see the difference though, because that's
I don't.
Okay, so the difference is, like, for example, okay, I'm gonna let you finish. But I just want to ask, did you not see the difference? So let me throw something out and you finish. So, for example, one of our mastermind, one of our psychologists in the mastermind, he says, "Yo, why isn't Queen sufficient? Queen, in a sense, is sufficient." So the difference with a Black Panther versus Sam's concern is the name and the time and the propaganda that comes along with it. So there wouldn't be a concern if, as I agree with Sam, other women wouldn't allow their culture to be called king per se. So if it was called the warrior princess or the warrior queen, I don't think we would have reason for the dialogue. But because they particularly chose king, which is kind of a misgendering, the dialogue, what she said was what's behind it.
I hear you.
Yeah, here's the mainstream.
I hear that. That's what I said. The difference is the name. I hear that. You said you didn't see the difference. You said you didn't see the difference between this. I said I didn't see the difference other than the name, and that's what you just said. The difference is the name. So what you're saying is that if the name was different, you would be okay with all of the context of the movie. So the only difference is the name.
That's not the only difference.
That's what he's saying.
Right. Okay. So in my opinion, when I saw the movie, I did like the movie. However, what I did not like about the movie is they were still making us hyper masculine. And secondly, they made us all bald head. And then they marketed us as bald head. So without hair. That's another problem. Your hair is your crown. And that's another sign of being feminine. So I had a major problem with that as well. Now,
and you're entitled to your differences. I'm not arguing your point.
Absolutely. This is not an argument. We're talking about
I don't mean it in a literal sense.
Okay, we're talking about you asked about the differences, right?
No, I didn't ask about that. He was asking about that. I was trying to explain my take on it.
Okay. But you said nobody had a problem with the movie, and that's not the case. If people have a problem, Black women should not be the only ones going around being bald head and shaving their hair because of a movie. I think that Black people, we glorify movies, and I think that it's okay to have movies that represent that, but all our movies should not represent one thing. And we should have more balance. Where are our feminine movies at? Where are the movies that showing us as queens, as mothers, as caring women, as nurturers? Where are movies that showing us that? We're being shown and displayed as angry, aggressive, hostile, popping gum, reality TV show, divas. We can't be nice. We're not friendly. I mean, let's keep it real. We know the stereotypes that go on in this country about us, and I don't have no problem with the movie. I have not seen that movie, and I think if it's a great movie and it shows balance, that's fine. What I'm saying is I can't even get past the title because number one, it dismisses our men, and number two, it's dogging us out. It's a direct shot to Black women. We are not kings. Even if it goes based on history. From my understanding, the women in the movie are not even kings. They're fighting along with their kings. We are not kings. I take direct offense to being called a king. I am not a king. I am a queen, and I love when my Black men. Hold on a second. I love when my Black.
Sam, let me jump in. Okay, because she hasn't finished.
Right.
And Shadon is also saying she fully respects your opinion, so she's not even disagreeing with how you personally feel about it. So just let you know. So
yeah, I fully respect everybody's opinion.
No. I'm just highlighting. I
didn't get a chance to finish my.
Yes, I want to move.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
I'll let her move back. All right, go ahead, Shadon.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, that's okay.
The people in the back, I got y'all coming as well. Let me let Shadon finish.
I lost my train of thought, but I'll say this: that I think your perception is your reality, right? And so we talk about like reality TV shows or movies depicting us in a certain kind of way. Montoya will tell you that's not the world I live in. I don't watch things that don't align with who I am. I don't allow people or things into my space that make me feel less than or don't represent who I am or what it is that I desire for my life. But I'm also respectful of the fact that everybody doesn't hold the same opinion as I do, that everybody is not showing up in the world in the way that I do. And I'm also very clear that there's nothing wrong with that. And so my issue becomes with the perception solely based around the name of a movie is that if I do view myself as strong, if I do see myself as a warrior, if I'm already bald and this gives me power, right? If all of those things are my truth and I can relate to them, then I have other Black people then telling me that you're demasculating men and you're too masculine and you don't have any femininity because you have muscles and a bald head and you don't have hair that's your crown. And not saying that that's what you're saying, Queen, but I'm just saying we have to be careful in how we describe each other, or even what the perception is, or what we assume the perception is, or the intention is around things that are created for us. And my last point would be, if we want to see more movies, more shows, more things depicting us in different ways, we have to support them. Because at the end of the day, this is a capitalistic society. Money makes the world go round. And so Viola Davis did an interview on Breakfast Club, and I implore you all to listen to it. But the reality of it is, we can't make another movie. They don't want to give us the money to begin with. By the way, produced by Viola and her husband's production company. By the way, written by a Black woman, the same Black woman who directed by the same Black woman who directed Love and Basketball, right? Like, and so just understand that if we are out here boycotting ourselves, and then all of a sudden they'll have a woman king with an all-white cast talking about a place in Africa, then we'd be mad at that.
So you don't think we'll see it? We don't think other races will do that.
No,
that would never happen.
To tell that story, I'm saying specifically to tell that story. If they had did this exact same story and used the opportunity to tell the story and had an all-white cast, we'll be pissed about that. If they would have told this exact same story but had white production companies and white directors, we'll be pissed about that.
That's who produced this movie.
You should be able to say, this ain't for me, and let it be. You don't have to destroy it. You don't have to tear it down. You don't have to go on a crusade to tell everybody that it is destroying us as a people, because if a man feels demasculated or emasculated, that ain't got nothing to do with the movie. His woman making him feel that way, or his daddy that didn't raise him made him feel that way. Ask him where his daddy at to teach him some masculinity. Like, don't stop putting it all on the Black woman. It ain't all on us.
So I never said any of that.
Yeah, let's go. Let me jump back. Other people got to jump in. So, Shadon, definitely respect.
I'm not talking to you direct. Generalization about the situation. This is not pointed to you, Sam. We had this conversation last week.
All right, let me jump in. So I understand what you're saying, Shadon, from the individual standpoint. I'll just highlight a lot of the concern is what the media attempts to do. So in a sense, it's not whether a Black man personally is feeling demasculated. It's just the media perception and the unbalance that consistently comes out. So I got a couple.
Can I just ask this quick question?
Go ahead.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
On this space right now, are we not a part of the media?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're go ahead.
Say this. So if we are a part of the media, and these are the conversations that we're having, that we have people that are on their social media platform spreading this narrative or supporting the narrative that these stereotypes exist. Like, for example, my daughter is not familiar with these stereotypes. But if she go on TikTok bunch of grown ass black people telling her that that like black women are too strong and we're doing this to men and blah blah blah. These are grown-ups creating that narrative for her. There's not other little 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds making that conversation.
But do the media not
do of the myth, because people
but the
aren't
media
even watching the news anymore.
perpetuates these things way more than an individual.
The workplace, the media, it's all over. It don't have to be in your home. It's in her school. It's all over. So she's going to get it, whether it's directly or not. My nephew, he got called the N-word at school after he thought that he was above being called that. So we think that it's not happening in our homes because it's not happening in our homes. It's not happening to us. We get wake up calls real quick when it comes down to things like that. So I would be real mindful of the things that we think on an individual level, right?
All right, Michelle's been waiting a little longer than you, Chief X. I'm gonna get her on first, and I got you next. All right, Michelle, let's see here. Here we go. All right, Michelle, are you trying to add your 3 cents, and then I'm gonna get Chief X next?
I was Sherdon. I'm sorry, I'm messing up all the words.
You said it right. You said it correctly. Sherdon is correct.
But she kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit. I do think that judging a whole movie full of black women by a title, which when you watch the movie, the title makes sense. I guarantee you, it's all at the end of the movie. If you just watch the end of the movie, the last 10 minutes, it'll all make sense. All right. So there's so much to unpack there. A lot of the points, I was fuming, I was pacing. There was a lot going on. My heart's beating fast because I was hot. I'm over here tripping because this is top 3 movies for me right now. And looking at the title, it was like, I'm interested in this. It wasn't one of those things where it was like if it was named a woman queen, they'd be like, okay, that makes sense. That's not very interesting. That's not eye-catching for ticket sales, right? And part of the naming might have been, minus the whole plot of the story, part of the naming could have been this type of dialogue right here. Boycotting something that is done more in a best interest than not for a whole community doesn't make sense to me in any way, shape, or form. But just like that ice cream, black people can't have nothing. This is from a previous show. But stop laughing at me. I'm focused. So one of the things I did want to say is that I was watching the Viola Davis Oprah interview. And one of the things that Viola Davis said is that she was so proud of the range of femininity that she got to show on the big screen globally as a Black woman, because femininity is oftentimes associated with meek white women, and they're so dainty and they're so this and they're so that. Whereas Black women, when you see that on the screen, you have to imagine yourself in that role. Whereas the range, because it was regular non-warrior based women there. It was mothers there. It was farmers. It was the people making the palm oil. It was a lot of Black women there doing all types of stuff. The movie is centered around the secret warrior group, and I don't want to spoil too much of it, but that is what the center and the focus of. And they ain't bald. They got a lot of different hair from a lot of different tribes. They got braids and Bantu knots galore, and it was so beautiful. Me as a woman seeing this on screen, and it didn't emasculate men. It didn't do anything. It was part of the tribal culture of that kind of yin and yang, male and female.
Yeah, let me
word is this ruler.
Yeah, let me jump Chief X in here real quick. I'm just kind of mention a couple things that you said just to keep in mind a perspective for someone like a Sam who's not going to see it based on the opinion that there is a overabundance of us being shown certain ways. So I would say, just to throw this out to Sam's point, if you're telling me that's all in the movie, it would be nice to see that imagery as part of the promotions. And so what happens is, again, worried about the concern and the propaganda of, again, an unbalanced viewpoint that is a trope that is not fair to our community being pushed. It's like we're denying that media push absolutely exists. And this movie was produced and written by white women. The sisters were brought in after the fact. I'll show you who the women were. But let me get Chief X on here as well. Go ahead, Chief X. Give us your 3 cents.
Hey, how y'all doing? How y'all doing?
Yeah, what you got for us, King?
Well, I seen the title and I had got a notification. So I said, oh, let me jump on, right? Right. And first I want to know, did you see the movie?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got myself and Sam have not seen it. I don't know if Shadon's seen it, but it's definitely Michelle just mentioned that she's seen it. So I intentionally wanted to bring on both perspectives because Sam does not want to see it. So I wanted to have the dialogue between people who don't want to see it and people who have seen it, just to give you context. Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, so yesterday I said to myself, I want to get into this dialogue about this movie because I see a lot of misinformation about the movie, right, online. And I said, I cannot speak on this movie or give my opinion on it until I go see it. So last night I went to go see it by myself. I took myself on a date and watched this movie by myself. And I actually liked it, the movie. I consider myself a movie buff and a good movie critic. Okay. At 52 years old, I've seen it all. It was a good movie. It was above average. Nothing to write home about, nothing to kick out of bed, right? But it was a decent, good movie. I enjoyed it. Now, I think to speak on this movie, you have to see it, or else you're spreading misinformation about it.
Chief X, I got to cut you off here because our dialogue is about people that were concerned about I'm not talking about whether this is right or wrong, but we're having for Sam's position, she's having a dialogue about the propaganda. So you can have that conversation. We're not trying to, she's not, me or her.
Can I give an example?
No. I'm gonna tie it in. I understood it. I've been listening. I'm gonna tie it in. I got you.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So I said I have to see this to speak on it, right? And just I wanted to clear up a few points. All the women had hair. They weren't bald headed. When I watched the movie, I said it's a bunch of kinky, tightly coiled hair women in here. It's no weaves up in here. So when Sam was saying that they were bald and our hairs are crown, in reality,
that's for Wakanda. That's for the Wakanda, the Black Panther movie, not this movie.
So in reality, in Africa, we do have short hair.
Sure.
That tribe, that specific tribe, literally had short hair. Okay, and it's okay. Most Black women, we do have shorter hair. That's fine. So I love the movie, but you will understand the title "Woman King" unless, like the last caller, last commenter said, until you see the end of the movie. And since I don't want to give a spoiler, I'm just going to say that the title of the movie makes perfect sense. Okay. If you actually watch the movie and see the end of it.
All right.
You know what I mean? But I don't want to give any spoilers. So I'll just
one
leave
quick
it
question, and I'll let you answer it first, and other people can jump in. No, that's fair. That's fair. Let me ask you a quick question. I'll let the other people jump in as well, but I'll ask you. In my mind, no other race or culture would use a king for their women. What do you think about that thought? Because I hear that not, I'm saying it personally, but I've also read, and I'm gonna share some thoughts from somebody else that said that as well. No other race would misgender themselves that way. What do you think about people who feel that way, Chief X?
It depends on the situation, right? In ancient Egypt, they had a lady called Hatshepsut, who she's called a king and a queen of Egypt. Okay. Right? So it fits depending on the situation. Why she was given that title, you have to understand. Okay. But they're letting you know she's a woman, but they bestowed a gift on her at the end. Gotcha. As the woman king. So it does make sense. And I'm wondering what it is a movie, and they're touting it as fiction, but it is a true story. But it's fiction because they have to make it entertaining to the people, right? So I'm a stop talking, but I'm curious to know what is the propaganda? Like, how can we say it's some propaganda if we haven't seen it? You get what I'm saying?
Because
So
it's not
what?
about the
No,
movie.
I don't get what you're saying. I don't get what you're
It's
saying.
because it's not about the movie. What I'm
Okay.
saying is not about the movie. It's about the title. Because number one,
Okay, so the title you're saying is
you
propaganda.
asked the question, so I want to give you an answer.
Yeah.
So
So
in
just
this
the title you're
in
speaking
this
on, right?
country where we don't have king,
Let
and
her
it
answer.
No,
I
no,
can't hear
I want
you.
to get clarity before she answers it, so she can
Oh,
answer.
I'm sorry.
But
Go ahead.
you're talking. Just, I got you. I'm not. I don't cut them out. You're talking about just the title is propaganda.
Sure.
Go
I
ahead.
haven't seen the movie.
Okay.
And the imagery as well. So
I mean, the imagery, absolutely. Because if you look at Viola Davis, she looks like a man on there, and she looks like she's ready to go in combat. And this is how they portray us every day in the media anyway. But what I
No.
was going to say is that I think by comparing the movie to the title, if you already seen the movie and you think it's an outstanding movie, I think that's great. I cannot speak on whether the movie is outstanding or not. I can only speak about the propaganda that's behind the title. Number one, it dismissed men. And in this country we live in, I mean, first off, this country we live in, nobody's called the king and the queen. One of my friends made a statement. Well, we don't even have kings and queens in this country. That's true. But one of the points I was making is that our black men call us queens. I don't know any other race where their men call them queens. Other than our race. I do hear black men call other women queens outside of us, but that's very, very seldom. And
Here's
not
the
also
thing.
that, hold on a second. It dismisses our men. So if you're going to call a black woman a king, what are our black men? I mean, it's what would our children be? What would we be viewed as?
Right.
Just
So
like,
let me.
hold on 1 second. Can I finish, please? Just like one of the points I made in the Black Panther, as far as the imagery, somebody was saying how people identify, right? So when you look at these movies, you look at these titles, you identify to them. So if I'm considering myself a boss already, we have these negative images already. I'm a boss. I'm all these stereotypes, and now I'm a king. So where does that leave room for us to be a queen? Where does that leave room for the positive images? Two white women wrote this movie. Why they couldn't go put a white woman's face on it? If there's other white kings, right? That you just said. If there's other white women that are kings, why they didn't go find them to do the movie? Because they're not going to put that image on them people. They want to put it on us. I understand. This is one thing I do understand about black women. I'm a black woman myself, and I think that we get so caught up on this power struggle, on this. I want to be so strong. I want to be so powerful. I want to be this. I want to have this image. We don't need no more of those images. I think that if it was all fair, around the whole spectrum, I can see it being okay. But we're not. We're only shown in certain ways, and
no,
that's really a
let
shame.
me let Chief X jump back in. I'm gonna ask Jazz something.
Yeah. So
ahead,
I think when I'm talking, I'm really kind of talking to the audience, not you specifically, Sam.
Absolutely.
Okay. So when I'm speaking things about the movie that just clarifying some misleading stuff that was said. So I'm not really speaking to you. So
I know.
That's not fair, Chief X. I'm cutting you off because
I'm not.
I'm not speaking to nobody. I'm not speaking directly to nobody either.
It's not an effort to be an attack. That's all he's saying.
Yeah. That's fair. But here it is. I want to.
Let me just say this real quick.
Listen, y'all. When I'm talking, that's all of y'all on here, so we got to talk one at a time. Only thing I'm saying is, keep in mind, Chief X, there's nothing misleading about her being concerned about the imagery.
No, I'm not saying that.
So you say you corrected misleading things that were said. There was no misleading things said.
That's not.
No. I pointed out something. I didn't want the audience to think the women in the movie were bald-headed, because they weren't. I'm just clarifying that. Okay. So also, if you understand, if you know the history of the females in the Dahomey tribe, they dressed them like men. Right. They were portraying. In the movie, they were more feminine than they were in real life.
Right.
Okay, so they weren't. That's not propaganda. It's the reality of the warrior women. They looked like men. Some of them dressed as men. Okay, and this is spoke of in the history. So that's not propaganda. It's the reality, right? So also the movie had a king. A man was represented as the king of the tribe and the boss. A male was. So I'm just saying, if you didn't see it, I don't want the audience to thinking that it was some emasculation and some men wasn't running. The man was in charge. He was the boss. I'm just clarifying that. It was a man who was king. He bestowed an honor on her at the end, is all I'm saying.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah,
So
that's fair to a degree.
Last thing. So that's just a clarification because it was told that men were looking weak and emasculated.
Right. So
I don't think any male, or I didn't feel any type of way about the women king or the women warriors.
Right. I understand
I don't know any other man who felt any kind of way about it.
So Chief X, I want to, because that's fair if you were worried about the audience receiving that. Just know that the point that was made, just in case this wasn't clear. So the point that was made is that there is these images that are currently exist in our culture. And so if somebody just simply says the imagery can add to that, that's not that person saying these things were in the movie.
No, I get it. I'm not. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not directing it to her.
It's not about directing it, but it's still, nobody was saying these things were in the movie. There was never a point suggesting that these things were in the movie. The concern is the tropes that exist in our community, and does this trope get added to based on the marketing?
No, it's a movie based on little realities. But what I'm saying is, I'm just pointing out some things, just for clarification for the audience.
Right.
There was a male king. So,
you keep clarifying.
No. What I'm saying, Montoya, is somebody was speaking. Someone was speaking as if there wasn't a king. So I was just adding clarification. There was a king and the man was in charge.
Can I just ask a question about? Oh, Glenn, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something.
Right, let me let the men talk because you know.
Sorry. So yeah, I wanted to stick to the title because I think that's a fair ground for people that haven't seen the movie, and the portrayal of King. I think that's an interesting conversation. But what I wanted to kind of steer back to when it comes to that word king, I think that the fact that there are a lot of Black women that may fit that type of being hyper masculine, because that does exist in our community. If you portray it in any way, and you're shedding light on someone's reality, it's not the same as saying this is what we should be, or this is what is to be expected, or this is what we're striving towards, or a message saying this is what all Black women are. It's just saying this exists in the community. So I'm saying if the woman king, the name itself directly says we're portraying a stereotype that Black women are overly masculine, I'm saying if there are overly masculine Black women in the community, should we never represent that at all? Or
so I don't. This is the third time. It's the third time that somebody has suggested when Sam and even myself are talking about what propaganda looks like, and we keep trying to say the unbalance of how much that is shown. So that is not saying that it should never be shown. Even Sam said it's a beautiful thing for what you just talked about to be shown if there is enough of us, the other side being shown. She said it's a beautiful thing to show women like you just talked about if we were seeing enough of the other side of it. So that's clearly not suggesting that it shouldn't be shown. That's but it's the third time. I'm just trying to be real clear. Nobody has said that at all.
That's the opinion I got, though. I got the same opinion he got.
So but I'm just saying you're just not. She's clear. If somebody says, Sam said, it's clearly. She said it's a beautiful thing for women to be shown in the manner they were shown. I'm talking about in a strong and powerful way. Her exact word tonight was, it's a beautiful thing to be shown in that way if we get enough of the other side being shown. So it's no problem that y'all got that, but I'm now clarifying. She's been consistently saying she's concerned about how much unbalance is shown throughout the media. It's not saying don't show women this way. And she said it's a beautiful thing if we had more balance. She's saying it's not a beautiful thing while we don't have balance. So I'm just kind of, so it's cool that you got
that. I'm not confused on that point, and I get it. Right. I think
I don't think you are, Shadon.
What's being missed on the other side, I guess, from the perspective of woman king-ish personality, right? Like, I think it's missed in the argument, in the conversation, that although we're very clear that it's not balanced, We're very clear on that. Nobody on here is not clear on the fact that there's
No,
not.
you got it. You just had three people keep saying they're not clear. That's why we had to correct that part. You get it, but others did not get it. He just said I didn't.
Montoya, I think you're being a little biased today because you're cutting everybody off except and not Sam.
You are. Because I'm not
he's cutting me off plenty of times.
I'm saying
he let Sam go free. He cutting everybody else off.
That's not true.
No,
Relax, Sam. That's true. I wouldn't lie.
It's not true.
Y'all let Shadon go.
Okay.
Go ahead,
What
Shadon.
I'm saying is not in this call specifically. I'm saying as a people, we are aware that there is not balance in the imagery of us. I'm not saying on this call. I'm saying as a people, we're pretty clear that there's not balance on the imagery, and there does need to be something done about that, right? We should be equally clear that in mainstream media, we only have but so much power, right? And so if we are not positioned and funded to make certain types of movies and films, then that's an issue too. And if we don't do things to make sure that we can make the money that we need to make so that people like a Viola Davis, which she has said very clearly, what was most important to her is that these films do well so that when she brings something else to market, that they will fund it, that they will green light it, that they will make space for it.
Oh, yeah,
but
I love that thought.
Even, for example, I hate Tyler Perry shows, all of them, for the most part. but I would make sure that my television was on so that he got the ratings in the beginning so that he can continue to position himself in power. And now, even if I don't like the programming that he produces, because of the wealth that he produced, when we want to make a certain kind of movie and there's nowhere else to go and nobody will greenlight it, we know that he will. We know that they can go to his studio because he's made enough money. So we have to be mindful of the bigger picture and not be caught up in the propaganda or the hype of the moment, one. And then my last point is number two, is that we also, again, words are power. So I get that we're saying these women, Viola Davis looked really big and strong and like a man and all that stuff, right? But for one, as a dark-skinned woman, there's already challenges around every aspect of what we do and what we look like, right? And so then to turn around on top of that and somebody say, oh, and she got muscles, look at her looking like a man. By the way, she's a warrior. So I don't know if we want her to be chunky. Not really sure what that would look like. But highlighting her physical physique and defining it as masculine, when as a woman who was very athletic, before I settled down with kids and all that, got a little flat, but definitely still was very toned, very muscular in my own way. I have a lot of friends who do bodybuilding and all of that stuff, and they're still wives, they're still moms, they still feminine energy, they still cry. Like, to assume that your body being made a certain way, or you not having hair, or like using all these physical descriptives to decide if I'm feminine or masculine without having a conversation with me. If I have to defend myself, I should be in a position and physically prepared to do that. That doesn't mean that she also went home and put her man in a chokehold. That means she did what she had to do when she had to do it. So I'm
but
just
if she had to,
careful. Not because I don't think I rarely think people that we do things with ill intent. I think we do things ill informed, but I want us to just be mindful of that, because there's some little girl out there, just like we're conscious of what we say about chunky people or what we say about somebody that's anorexic. Like, we can't play into the propaganda and the stereotypes of talking about women's bodies and judging them based on their physical and deciding because they're muscular to go to war that they're no longer feminine. Women who go to the army got to train the same way the men do. They're muscular. They got to be ready for war. That does not make them less feminine when it's all said and done.
Can I
James,
respond to this?
Not yet, because James
Okay.
is new to the broadcast. I'll let him get in. Then
Thank you. I was just going to say, I guess it
Right.
depends on how and what you define as feminine, but this conversation is a little funny to me because I did grow up around a lot of women and such, and I remember for my aunt's birthday, they were talking about growing up. My grandmother had 7 children, and my aunt said, and I'm here to tell you, she could hit as hard as any man, and if you stepped out of line, you was gonna get it. So we love my grandmother, sweet, feminine lady, took us to church and all that good stuff. But when she had to step out, when she had to basically be hard, she was hard. And I was like, Aunt Barbara, she said she was a country girl. She grew up in the country. And if you did something, she wasn't getting ready to be like, oh, I'm a woman or whatever. She would basically fight back, even my grandfather. And she used to talk about how the difference she knows between our women and the white women she used to clean for. My grandma was a maid, and she says she just remembers when things would go on in the house that she worked at, the women would say, oh, you just wait till your father gets home. You just wait till your father gets home. My grandma said, why they gotta wait? why why they gotta wait till the father get home? Why can't you handle it? But there are some differences. So I think it's one of those things, and I'm not a woman, so excuse me if I speak out of turn. But I think it's the same adage that women have been fighting for years, having your cake and eat it too. The proverbial superwoman. I'm a mother. I'm a warrior. I can do any and everything a man can do, and it doesn't take away from my femininity. And I don't know if that works. I remember the CEO of PepsiCo, who was a woman from India, talked about this once. And she says, I'm here to tell you, she was like, I'm telling you, my sisters around the world, I know in the 60s they told us that we could have it all. And she said, I'm here to tell you they lied. You can't have it all. She said, I was the CEO of one of the world's largest corporations, and I had children, and I was a mother and a wife. And there were some times where the company had to come first. So I think it's kind of the same thing. We're giving an over critique of this movie. And at the end of the day, it is a movie and it's based off of reality, but you do have to take some creative licensure and literary liberties to tell a story, or none of us are going to look
breaking
at
up
it.
pretty bad.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I was going to say, do we want to see a movie or do we want to see a documentary? And that's what it boils down to.
Thank you
I
for
think
your
we.
thoughts. Go,
I think we nitpick.
I want to share something. I want to share something real quick before you go, Chief X, and I want to get Jazz in and Michelle in because they haven't spoken in a while. So I'm gonna share this thought again, just highlighting concepts about the propaganda. And so what you're hearing is, again, I want everybody to speak. I'm just adding this context again because we talked about this. Shadan, you had to leave at when you had left when we shared this on the show. So I'm gonna share it again real here and just Jazz, we'll start with you, and Michelle, you'll go next. So this is just a thought from Six the Goddess, just talking about again the preparation for this movie and the timing of it. This is and she's highlighting kind of some history of what it looked like to be a Dahomey warrior is how she starts it. She says, you are 15, a virgin, stripped of your childhood and womanhood to go die. Women warriors rarely ever succeeded and were killed even quicker. You are not allowed to have sex with anyone but the real king, not allowed to marry, not allowed to do anything natural for a woman, and are instead handed a spear to go sacrifice yourself. You make the best out of it because you are in literal survival mode and quite frankly don't have a chance. Centuries and centuries later, in a climate where women that look like you are complaining daily, hourly about not being protected, and your men are constantly being systematically feminized and portrayed as disposable to their women, a movie is released called Woman King, depicting you as strong and fearless warriors who are able to save everyone because the men failed. You were there fighting for your life with your back against the wall, with the big sweaty man jumping up and down on top of you, and all the other warrior girls in between battle. Then a group of Jewish white women prop you up in society like, look, Black women have a history of being powerful warriors and saving their men. Look, see, they can be powerful and fearless just like men. and we will take this atrocity ingrain the image of Black women being king of all the world. And when they ask why we're misgendering them by calling them king, we will tell them that's just how it translates. And the Black women will support it and help us defend it because they are so thirsty to be depicted in any way they love Auntie Viola. We will tell them their auntie directed it, basically give her a chair with her name on it so she feels like she had a significant say-so, but she actually doesn't and is a pawn. That way they won't ever expect an agenda coming from it. Jazz, we'll start with you. Any thoughts to hearing that perspective about potential agenda with this movie coming out at this time? Any thoughts on that?
So for me at this point, I just feel like folks are going to see what they want to see out of it. I don't necessarily agree with all that was said. If that's the angle that she wants to take, if that's how she wants to see it, if that's how she understands, then that's fair for her. But I just don't agree. I don't think that the movie makes me feel unprotected as a woman. And like I said, without giving spoilers, and like he said before, you have to see the movie. I don't think it feeds into the propaganda. So I just don't. Yeah. I don't agree with it.
So here's, I'm gonna go to Michelle next. So in my opinion, the miss is the point is not being made about the actual movie, and so you don't have to see the movie to say here are the concerns with the propaganda. This is not about whether she's right or not. It's just she's not making a point about the movie. She's making a point at the timing and how it's serving at a time when these are issues in our community. So you don't have to see the movie to be concerned with that propaganda. You can disagree with the propaganda, but it's not a point about the movie. I just want to keep highlighting this and not about the actual movie. Michelle, your thoughts?
Where did that come from? Where did that?
There was Six the Goddess. That was her thoughts, similar to Sam, who is concerned about the propaganda of the timing, and and have like Sam, she doesn't want to see it for her reasons. Six the Goddess is in a similar position. She doesn't want to see it because she's concerned about what she said. Again, that's not about whether the movie depicts it or not, just the timing of it, calling her king at a time like this. That's the concern that you can have without seeing the movie. I just want to be clear. We're not talking about the movie, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so with that being said and being respectful of everyone's position and point of view, we are a sensitive people to the point where we can't have nothing no more. So and the thing is, like, I can think of several instances where a show has come out or a movie has come out and it was Black people, and I'm thinking about Blackish specifically, and another movie, I can't think of the title right now, where it was Black people specifically. We heard the title Blackish and we're like, I don't know. And we didn't watch it. It didn't even come on ABC yet. And we're like, I'm not watching this. Why? Right? But taking that to another level of what I said before, we can't have anything because of the imagery of a 60-second trailer of women who are muscular and air quotes masculine or not white women doing something that not white women do. Now it's, we're hyper masculine. But if you see a fat Black lady, we always got to be fat and funny and uncultured. Or if you see someone who's more voluptuous and more sexy, it's, we always out here sexy. We ain't doing nothing, blah, blah, blah. And so it's like, we were so sensitive because of our unique past and our current realities that we aren't supporting one another. And it doesn't make financial sense. If we really want to show all spectrums of Blackness, Black womanhood, black manhood, hyper masculine men and hyper feminine women and vice versa, everything in between, we have to stop cutting each other down, especially financially, in front of mixed company, as some of the older Black people would say. Like, we got to stop having these type of conversations in front of white people.
So I'm going to go to Chief X. You've been on long, James. Go ahead, James. I'm going to go to Chief X after you. Go ahead.
Oh, gotcha. I was going to ask, that's kind of interesting because like they always say, we just don't have balance, and that's why we're so protective of our, like she said, protective of our image. But I was gonna just give in a little bit of history of that. I'm pretty sure most of everybody here remembers the show from the 80s and 90s, Married with Children, and they had the same issue. But a lot of people don't remember that Married with Children was actually supposed to be a black show, and it was Fox's response to the Cosby Show. The title was "They're Not the Cosbys," and the writers were black. And originally, they were going to basically cast the family as black. And then, right before it went to production, someone said, "Oh, you can't do that." And they said, "Well, why not?" They said, "If you put a show of black people that act like the Bundys on television, we will be picketed by the NAACP." They said that's why you can't do it. And it was like, so what are we going to do? So then at the last minute, they made them white because they said they have enough positive images that if you put a negative family or a less than stellar looking family of white people on television, people aren't going to complain. But that when she was talking about we can't have this, we can't have that, that just made me remember that and think about that. What we can and can't have because we are always so protective of our image. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is just a notation.
Yeah, something you were pointing out. I'm gonna go to Chief X.
Can I say one thing first?
Go ahead, Michelle. Go ahead, Michelle.
Right. So, just kind of thinking about the Cosbys, right? Black people had a problem with the Cosbys. Black people had a problem with A Different World. Black people had a problem with everything under the sun. And they probably, if they had social media back then, they'd probably be on a conversation at 10 o'clock at night, having the same conversation about how the Cosbys are too white and they don't reflect black culture.
Yeah.
But continue.
I missed that narrative when I was coming through. I thought we loved them. We more people went to college because of Different World. So that was the one.
But was very anti-Cosby.
Let me go to Chief X. I'm gonna share the screen.
Okay,
real
can
quick.
you hear me good before I go?
Yeah. Here it is. I want to share a screen, then give it right back to you. I'm sharing the screen real quick, and then I'm gonna take you back on full screen. Hold on 1 second. So just to highlight, here's a quick question, Chief X, and then you can finish, say anything you want to say. But a quick question to you: can y'all see my screen? Am I sharing it correctly? Y'all see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So quick question, then say whatever you want to say, Chief X. So a question from the perspective of, is there propaganda? These are actually the creators of the Woman King. So is it a fair question, Chief X, for some people to ask? Is there a potential agenda coming from these women? Is that at least a fair question? Your thoughts on that, Chief X? And I'm gonna stop sharing the screen before you go. Hold on 1 second. Let me stop sharing the screen and bring you back full screen. Yeah, if you don't mind answering that and then saying whatever else you want to say.
Yeah, it's unfair. It's just people's I think it's people's personal paranoia and people's personal racist feelings. Okay, so can you hear me good?
Yeah, we hear you very well. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think we are sensitive, like the last guy was saying. I think we're sometimes overly sensitive. I think we nitpick things a little too much. I think it was a good black movie that we should all have support, so things like that can come out again. You know, hearing the word propaganda to me feels like somebody is making it some kind of conspiracy theory the movie was about, and they conspiring against black folk to make us look bad and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But we clarified that there's no propaganda if someone literally has seen the movie. Like, the movie set it off with Queen Latifah as a full-blown dyke. Nobody complained, okay? We give rappers all this pass, but when we talk about our history, then it's always some problem or why this and this and that. You know what I mean? I don't see a bunch of movies with a bunch of women playing roles as masculine men. It's like the thing you read by whoever you read, it just sounds like a person who didn't see the movie, first of all.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, to be fair. I want to be clear.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't. Go ahead.
And we have roles with women playing dykes and no one complains. Viola didn't even play a dyke. She played a woman who actually had a child and was raped and had issues in her life that made her what she was. So again, like if this propaganda thing is a conspiracy kind of a call. If you haven't seen it, you wouldn't understand. You know what I mean? So
But that makes
it's
sense.
plenty other movies with women playing rough roles, and this wasn't one of them to me.
Not fair. Let me go to Sam real quick. And again, we're just allowing everything to be heard. Here's the thing, in my opinion, that's beautiful about the dialogue is to, in my opinion, to have the actual dialogue with the different opinions. Because what I think happens is these dialogues about this very movie happens in echo chambers, and I think we're avoiding the echo chamber today. Like I love how Shadun, for example, is highlighting the need to continue supporting movies. She may recall we used to have the movie club. And that was part of the reason that we had the movie club, you know, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm tired of seeing all these, you know, these enslavement movies and things of that nature." But we was right there, front and center, having to deal with that context. But at the end of the day, you know, those movies got us to Jordan Peele, who now makes horror movies for us. So, to her point, there is a bigger picture, and I think without a dialogue like this, people can stay stuck in their echo chambers and never hear a bigger picture. So that's, again, to me, the beauty of having these dialogues and making sure, even me being intentional about, is this propaganda, so people can hear a good answer to, is this propaganda? So that's worth the dialogue to me. Sam, based on some of the things you heard, go ahead, Queen. I'm gonna give you, we're not gonna stay on here too much longer, but I want to make sure I give you a thought as well.
Okay, well, my stance is in regards to the title, not the movie. So I want to make sure that's clear again. And it's pretty much displacing is by saying the woman king, it's pretty much displacing the black man and putting the black woman as king. That's my point of the whole thing. It's also saying that it's also can be viewed as black women don't need black men, as this is already the narrative in our community. Also, I would never attack other black women. By me saying that Viola Davis looks strong, she does look strong. I didn't say anything about her complexion. I said nothing about her complexion. I'm a black woman myself. And as far as the Wakanda thing, I spoke on the women in Wakanda being bald head, and that is a fact. And also, I'm speaking on the imagery and how we take things on. When we look at it, we pass it down. So we look at it and say, okay, they saying, okay, now black women look beautiful with this hairstyle. So now all black women want to go and get their hair cut off. So I'm not saying that black women are unattractive without hair, but what I'm saying is that we all should not be doing the same thing. We come from various backgrounds. We should be able to be shown in different ways. We don't have to have just one way of being seen: hyper masculine, aggressive, violent. It
So
should not be the same.
let me ask you this, Sam. Let me ask you this, Sam. Based on the
Mhm.
context of the show that we've had this evening.
Uh-huh.
So again, just giving some credence to how it may have been promoted. And
Sure.
again, the name is what keeps, again, is enough for you to say, I don't want to see it.
Sure.
So and again, I know you'll let anybody do what they want, but can you at least give thought to this? So I see the concern. Like Shadun said, there's no argument about how much unbalance there is consistently shown in mainstream. So if that's not the argument, Glenn says, I side-eyed this movie, considered not going to see it. So I'm going through that process to say to this, can you at least consider this part? So I understand what you're holding on to. I'm not telling you to go see the movie, but can you see that you can be concerned with the imagery, and then a Glenn goes and actually is appreciative of the fact that the movie did not do anything that you're concerned about. So that ends up being a win despite whatever imagery that seems to fit into the trope that you're concerned about. Can you at least see how the movie end up being a win? Because some movies may happen and it's like, oh shit, this is a bunch of stereotypes we don't like. That could be the conclusion. But can you see the win in, again, you don't have to go see it, but can you see that Jazz and Glenn took their chance, and now they're walking out of saying, hey, this movie showed us why black men and black women need to go together. So that's a bigger win, in my opinion, than being concerned with the propaganda. And as you've heard throughout this dialogue, I get your concern for the propaganda, as I've been making sure that side we kind of been on here with you to make sure that side is represented fairly. I'm just trying to bring it all together and say, can you at least consider the win in that? Just to throw it out there.
Absolutely. I see the win in the things that they're saying in general. Yeah. I think that we're holding on to our own representation and how we feel individually, instead of looking at the bigger picture and how we are always shown in mass media and in this country in general, how our men are being viewed and how we are being viewed. So if it's a win, it's a win. I mean, obviously it's a win. Look at the box office numbers; they speak for itself. But when it come down to it, when it come down to Hollywood and stuff, Hollywood is not a fair place for Black women anyway. So it's not a fair place for Black people, period. They don't get the same wages. They don't get the same representation. We don't. So these are all things that happen in Hollywood in general, and when it's come down to making movies. So you cannot put that on Black people just not going to see movies.
Well, you get more opportunities when you support the movies. Again,
absolutely.
That's why
I'm gonna take off, Montoya.
Yeah. I'm about to shut it off anyway. But thank you for coming on. I'm gonna let.
Before I leave,
okay, go ahead, brother.
To call something propaganda means you've reviewed it, and then you can label it propaganda. But if you haven't seen it, you can't call it propaganda.
I'm not talking about the movie.
That's fair. I don't agree with that, Chief X, but that's fair for you to give that thought and have that perspective.
Okay, but so we cleared up what we thought was propaganda. We cleared up why the title was what it was.
Right. And that's why I was asking, could you see the win based on what y'all have said, that there may have been concern for the propaganda, myself included. And like I said, I end up doing this dialogue based on the beautiful review from Glenn and Jack.
Like you said,
but I think they can coexist, Montoya. I think they can coexist. I think it can still be an agenda, and I think that it can still be a good movie. I think they can coexist at the same time. I think that the bigger picture is how we're being represented and how we're being. I still see that title as being the same because it's the title, right?
I'm gonna let you guys go, and I'm gonna let Glenn and Jazz give us our last thoughts, so I don't rock all night. But I think this has been okay. You got something to say, Shadon? Okay, cool. All right, Chief X. Okay. All right, thank you, Chief X.
Jazz or Sarah, final point. I just wanted to ask a question to Sam. How would you feel if the movie was titled "The Woman Military General"?
The woman, I wouldn't like that either, because it's the same premise. It's the same idea that the Black woman is still. It's not necessarily that if all things were fair with all women of all color, that's another thing. I wasn't just talking about white women. I want to be clear on that. I said any other race. I didn't say white women. If all things was fair with Black women in all races, I wouldn't care if they said anything. And as long as they're not dismissing our men. But if it was all fair for all races of women, we all did the same things, I wouldn't say anything. But it's not fair. And then we are subjected to negative images all the time. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I understand your point with the word king being used. I was just curious your viewpoint when it comes to like military men and women roles, if that's the same or if that would be different for you.
Montoya said women warriors. What would be wrong with that title?
I think it probably has something to do kind of like in The King and I, where she got mad because he kept on calling her sir in that movie. And she says, I'm a man. Why do you keep calling me sir? Because in our society, women are worthless and not considered high. So I'm giving you honor by calling you sir. But back to the movie, I think we keep on talking about the how does it affect us? And me personally, I was a theater major in high school. And if I was to just grade the movie in and of itself and try to be non-biased, I would say the movie really was just okay. I think it did good because we're starved for content, like someone was saying in the chat. We just haven't seen ourselves as Africans really depicted for a long time. But I think the movie kind of was lackluster because I think to make a movie or cinema really good, you have to have a good background story. And that's why you have a series like Star Trek and Star Wars that have been around for decades because they have a good backstory. And I think this one just really glossed over a lot of things. I'm not for sure if it was because of politics or whatever. I felt like Viola Davis's character, they didn't give her a real good background story.
I'm gonna jump in on that because I don't want to know. I want to jump in there. Yeah. All right. So, Jazz, please, Quinn. I'm gonna let Jazz and Shadon say something, and we're out of here, y'all. Again, I just want to, as always, we just do open dialogues and make sure all sides are heard. That's our ultimate goal. Go ahead.
I will angrily type my comment then, since I don't get to go, but that's fine.
Okay, I'll be brief. I just want to say, just bring back something that Shadon said earlier. I think we are our biggest critics. I think that we are the one pushing this boycott. And I would just end by saying, just appreciate it as art, and go see it as a movie. It's a movie, it doesn't have to be anything more than that.
But a lot of things are hidden in art. A lot of things are hidden in art. So
that is the
I'm
number
gonna
one
say
place
that.
to put propaganda. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, if
Mhm.
you have to know the original Birth the Nation movie is why we have a lot of tropes about our community, and that movie was put out specifically. Now, I don't think they were knowing that putting it out in 1919, we would still be dealing with the tropes in 2020. But literally 100 years later, the tropes
Yeah.
that were put in that movie were intentional, and they're still with us. So we can't. Yeah, it's again, I love art, but let's know art propaganda can be good and bad. So the propaganda by itself doesn't make it negative, but it is where the most propaganda is used in art, even more so than news. Just throwing it
And,
out as a tactic for propaganda. Go ahead, Shadon.
and with propaganda, you have subliminal messaging. So you got to keep in mind,
I'm
it's
gonna
not
let
just
Shadon go, fam. You're right. Yeah, I'm
okay.
with you. Yep, let Shadon go. We're about to close it out. Thank you, Queen.
Okay, I'm gonna close it out and also open up a new one at the same time, right? But
oh, we ain't gonna have time to talk about it because I ain't staying on here.
I know. But I just want to say, that I respect everybody's point of view, right? I think that's extremely important to be very clear. But I asked in the chat earlier, and not for an answer, just to consider this. Like, I wonder the people who have this idea, the person that you read earlier, and the guy that we talked about on the show. Like, just thinking about these people, or the people that are pushing this conversation, about it, taking away the black man and making the black woman, overly strong or aggressive or whatever. I wonder, where was the black man in their family, right? And like was their father there? Was their brothers
Mhm.
there and stuff like that? And the reason that I asked that question is because I look at my household, right? And so I have a son and a daughter, and I'm married, and my children get to see both sides, right? So when they go out into the world and somebody's telling them that a woman's role is this and a man's role is this, and this is what it's supposed to look like, and you're acting too much like a man, and you're acting too feminine or whatever, they had examples of that at home. So society can't convince them of that. And I think, well, I said that to say we have to focus on, what are we doing? Like, it's easy to critique, it's easy to judge, it's easy to say we shouldn't be making movies like this. It's easy to tell people what they're doing wrong, but the conversation needs to be, what are we doing right? What are you doing to make sure that your children are not depicted that way, that they don't feel like these images reflect them, that they are not sucked into propaganda? What does your village look like? What is the community that you keep look like? And what are we doing about men who are not present, but how are we also celebrating those who are? Like, we put so much energy, and we always say, I'm gonna stop here, we have to be careful with this all or most comment, right? Like, when we talk about black folks, particularly in a negative light, we talk about most black businesses is this, most movies about black people is this, most black women are this. You don't even know most people. Stop saying that. Like, that, if that's your life experience, note that it's your life experience. And if it is, maybe that's a light bulb moment to say, I should probably change my circle, because most people around me are masculine. Most women around me are whatever. Like, whatever that is, change it for you,
Right.
so that it doesn't become how you see the world on the whole.
I'm gonna jump in here because, again, like you said, you're opening up, in a sense, another wound, if you will, whatever. I would challenge you to consider, in the context of today's conversation, being specifically about the unbalance that's clearly there. So the most doesn't apply if we all can agree that there is unbalance. So that's a different thought process based on the context of this conversation, where even you've agreed that there's a lot of unbalance. So in this case, we're all agreeing that there's a lot of unbalance. So that's not an unfair use of most, if we've already agreed on that. I'm just throwing that out. And then one other thought, because you said this on the show as well, what you're saying now, which is fair, I just want to throw out that I agree with Sam in this sense, that two things can be true at once. So when you say where is their father, and I actually know the sister that wrote the piece has it, just to throw this out. And I know you're not making a personal attack, but I just want to highlight. So I know you're not, but I'm just highlighting wonderful relationship, with the father, just to highlight that you wasn't making a personal attack. But I'm just throwing it out for us to go here. Where I want to go is even people who have that relationship, you can still see if there is an agenda there. Again, I'm not suggesting that there is, but the two things that can be true at once is that the agenda one might be there. And then the other unfortunate reality is I don't think we could disagree that unfortunately, due to the unfortunate number of broken homes, the people you're speaking to, you're right. They should be able to do and present the right images at home. But we have a lot of children that don't have that opportunity. And let's be honest, that they will be over-influenced by media because their homes are not, that way. So yeah, what we're doing at home, I agree with you.
On the media, if your daddy left, we're giving the media too much power.
But
and
you got to realize what they're able to do once that's happened.
Can I say one more thing?
We can't deny that. We can't.
Can I say one more thing? Because I'm on the other side.
Let her finish. Let her finish.
Okay.
Let her finish. Then you can say something, Sam.
No, I was just saying that I totally understand that. And to be clear, I wasn't saying it in judgment or making assumptions.
You definitely wasn't.
Right. So thank you for clarifying that on my behalf. But again, and I think Jazz kind of alluded to this earlier too, or Michelle, I'm not sure, but I just don't see it in that way because I'm not allowing that to enter my space in that way. I'm not giving it, mainstream media, that kind of power over my mental and over how I am going to now look at my homegirl who is a strong woman, or look at my homegirl who's a stay-at-home mom, because that's also a strong woman, right? And so I just think for me, it's just really important for us to say, I like to focus on the things that I can change, right? So I don't put a lot of effort into judging and critiquing what other people are doing, because I can only change me. I can only focus on what I'm doing differently for me. And so I'm not saying that we can't have these conversations. I think it's a beautiful dialogue. And I'm not saying that we're not open to give our critique and our feedback. I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying when that's all said and done, then what do we do, right? What are we doing to make sure that within our village, our circle, that the men that we know don't feel this way?
No, absolutely.
Or what are we doing within our circle to make sure that men are present and family units are present, so the media doesn't have that type of power?
Absolutely. But so also what happens, like for example, like having done, I finally stopped doing being part after school. But like for example, having looked at just giving us another example of media power. So having understood the psychology of how hip hop is unfortunately way more effective to young children than it is to older children, right? Like they've done, enough studies and things of that nature. So what you end up doing is you try to explain to a mother, you might not want to do it based on this. So what you do is you try to have influence where you have influence. So whereas in your home, you're able to, again, your daughter's not going to be affected based on the relationship you have at home. But it's not simply complaining if you're in your circle saying, hey, consider this issue and make sure it's not so that's doing something as well. So it's not simply just complaining if you're saying, hey, do we want to watch for this agenda? Is it a real thing? I think the dialogue that's happening now is, in this situation, how real is it versus how much it is may not be, right? So if you get to that dialogue, you go, oh no, this is a great one. Let's not put it under the situation. There will be some art that we judge that we're like, you know what? We need to make sure we're avoiding it. And so by having the dialogue, you can say to the community, hey, this didn't represent us well. Does that? So what I'm saying, that's a way of doing something as well for people that are not fortunate enough to have the home where they're being, because again, nothing influences you more than home. For them little kids I was having it after school, we got to come up with something else because they ain't got what you got, Shadon. So that's an action as well. I'm just kind of throwing out the balance of all of that.
I get that, and I agree and understand. I just want us to have that same. I want us to have that same energy. I'm not saying that we don't, or anybody on here doesn't. I'm just saying that same energy, because most of the conversations I have heard around this has been centered around mainstream media and propaganda, and it's like and I also respect, not airing our dirty laundry, but in this space, I just want to make sure that we're equally having the conversation that mainstream media and propaganda wouldn't have as much power. I'm not saying any power, but they wouldn't have as much power if we were making sure within our circles that men weren't out here producing baby mamas across several platforms, or even, because words are power, if we were having conversations, I say this as a business owner all the time, what would the world look like if your whole life you always heard that Black businesses gave the best customer service, whether it was true or not? Imagine where we would be if that's what you were taught and that was ingrained in you. We have so many conversations about negative stereotypes. If we had the same amount of energy in these conversations about positive things to reinforce us, we could be on a whole new level. But that's my 2 cents.
Hey, Michelle, hey, I tried to be positive about what these brothers was doing and got beat up, didn't I? All right. Hey, Sam, because you pushed me to do this show, you will get the last thought. I'm gonna read one comment that I know you're in agreement with, so you'll feel better, because I feel like you felt like you were in a long range. I did try to back you up a little. Again, I like to try to yeah, it's all good. I'm just saying I'm trying to weave through it. I'm being a little facetious right now, but we definitely weave through it. But Nisha said this, and I thought, I know you would appreciate this, because I think there's, again, as you said, two things can be true. But she just said it's the subconscious you have to be careful of. I can't stand that word like this. Something can seep into the subconscious, regardless of how much you teach at home. Subconscious is powerful. Mass media communication is powerful. I would agree with that. Sam, since you made me do the show, you got the last thought, and we're out of here, y'all.
All right, so my last thought.
Like they said, I did let you run for a little bit earlier.
I'm not gonna make it long. I'm just gonna speak on a little thing that was just the comment that was just made. I'm gonna say that I'm all about my Black people, my Black men and Black women. I'm all for that, right? However, and I had a father, brothers, uncles. I had the whole nine, full of love in my family. But that's one of the reasons why I am so adamant about this king title, because I feel like the men in my life are definitely kings, and I would never want them to be dishonest, and I would definitely not want to have that title represent me over them. I feel like they should always have a place, as a king in our lives, because they do recognize us as queens. And I think that we need to maintain our femininity in a way. And I think that king is a little strong for Black women. And that's been my stance the whole time. I'm not upset about the movie. I haven't seen it. I believe when they say it's a great movie. I believe that Hollywood has a way of making great movies, but I also believe that they have a way of adding things to, titles and propaganda as well. So, that's really all I have to say. I enjoyed the conversation. I really I appreciate you bringing me on this platform, and I appreciate talking to everybody. And I'm glad y'all enjoyed the movie.
Hey, beautiful. Good night, y'all. We'll see y'all.
Good night.
Pop-up shows. But I will remind you, Saturdays, Mental Dialogue Talk Show. I got an amazing show. So to Shadon's point, because we don't just do these conversations, and she knows that, but I know she wasn't talking about me when she said it. It was smart. In general, we do have to go find conversations we need to have. And I would highlight that Saturday shows is one of that. Saturday's Mental Dialogue Talk Show is, can we train our seeds to be generational wealth holders? I am fortunate enough to be bringing on special guest Eli Marcus, author of Secure the Throne, who has wrote out an amazing dialogue about what it looks like to teach the next generation to not waste away the wealth, because he highlighted that even for the wealthiest of Americans, second and third generations from them usually waste the money. And so that's part of the dialogue. And I'm going to be fortunate to bring on John Hall, who is a venture capitalist, who right now regularly works with the top 1% to invest their money. So I got someone who's providing these steps, and I got someone who regularly works with the wealthy, so we can have a dialogue about what does transferring generational wealth look like, and how do they expect to maintain it throughout their families. So if you missed this past Saturday show, that was the show called Grandpa, Will I Have an Inheritance? That was the conversation for making sure you leave one. Saturday show is, if you're planning on leaving one, how do you make it last past your children? So amazing, positive dialogues. Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go follow the Mental Dialogue Facebook page or the IG page, mental_dialogue, and you'll see the promotions for this Saturday show. Thank all of y'all for jumping on tonight. I think it was a beautiful conversation by everybody. See y'all when we do it again. Hope we made it make sense. See y'all on Saturday.
All right. Thanks, Montoya.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
That was a good show.